What's up, everybody? Welcome to an episode of my hip hop review. This is your boy Reg here. Album I'm about to review today is Craig G with his second studio album. That's More Like It, released in 1991 on Atlantic Records and shit like that. It only came out with one single from what I'm looking up, and that is called "You Are Not the One." And this album was produced entirely by Marley Marl with help from like Salam Remy and Craig G, and Francesca Spiro was like an executive producer. So you guys should remember that I've done a review of Craig G with Try and Ash, the Kingpin review and shit like that, which that album was not that good in my opinion. And he was very, it was highly anticipated because after his verse on the symphony, everyone was like, "What's he about to pull and shit?" So next thing you know, he came out with "That's More Like It" 2 years later and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so that album, was, believe it or not, his last album with Atlantic Records, because just letting you guys know that around this time, the album peaked at number 97 on the Billboard Top R&B and Hip Hop tracks and shit like that too. So it wasn't really promoted right, and he left Atlantic Records right after this album was released. So yeah, I can't blame him. But and guest appearances on this album include like The Flex and Master Ace only appear on one track and shit like that. So yeah, 18 tracks. I don't, of course, you guys should know, I don't have the album on me, but I'm definitely gonna, review everything and shit like that because I feel like this album definitely needs to be talked about. So track number one, intro. Nothing to it. Just pretty much, getting y'all what y'all used to for the album and shit. Track number two, what you're used to. Very dope song actually. Very dope song. Nice way to begin the album. Very nice Marley Marl beat and shit like that. Craig G actually rapping over a beat that he sounds comfortable in and shit, which I'm gonna talk about the production, once I finish reviewing this album and shit too, cause I got a lot to say about the production. But yeah, man, I felt like what you used to is definitely a solid track to begin with and shit like that. Track number three, Girl Fever. Oh god. This one features the Flex. Pretty straight okay song. My only gripe is the beat. I felt like the beat, and some of the beats off this album, you can definitely tell like Marley Marl had saved it, for LL, for Mama Said Knock You Out and shit like that, and it just really didn't fit Craig G like that. That's why. But yeah, it's an okay song. Track number four, Take the Bait. That's a dope song right there too. Take the Bait, pretty solid song. Um, I like the line where Craig says, compared to other MCs with the stale style, been in this for 5 years, only to hear live cheers, and I'm one that will continue to strive where others are failing to blow like a jet stream. Like, yeah, that's a very fucking dope song. That dope line right there. Should take the bait. Track number five, something to swing to and shit like that. Um, hmm. The beat alone, again, it had potential, but the beat could have been better. But lyrically, I felt like it was pretty dope and shit. So yeah. Track number six, I Want to Be in Love. Oh god. Yeah, this was not really one of my favorite tracks. Marley Marl was, trying to go for that New Jack Swing flavor and shit like that. Um, yeah, it's not as bad as the love songs on the Kingpin, but it's not really that good either. So, track number seven, Give It to Me featuring Master Ace. Another dope, cool song. I felt like Master Ace definitely stole the show with this song right here. Especially with the line like, now here funky track, Marley Marl hooked up. Deaf Black through the chef's hat and cook up. The stew sucker MCs, what y'all wanna do? I take it out with your whole whack crew. Like, yeah, man, like fucking Master Ace on that take a look around, Stilo and shit like that. Him and Craig G just going back and forth, Yeah, very cool song. And so that concludes like the first half of this album and shit like that. And next thing it ends up with intro 2, which I believe intro 2 is pretty much like more of like the lyrical in your face and shit like that kind of vibe. And so it next starts off with Rip to Threads. Now, there's a little story behind this song right here and another diss track off this album. So this was a diss track aimed at MC Shan, and the reason why him and Shan were going at it was because the fact that when Marley Marl had left Cold Chillin' Records and shit like that, he basically around the time he was severing ties with a lot of like the prominent Juice Crew members and shit, like Big Daddy Kane, Biz Markie. Even though with Biz Markie, he was already excuse me. Even though with Biz Markie, he was already producing his own shit right after going off. Roxanne Shante and so on and so on. But he was still, producing and working with, Craig G, Tragedy, and to an extent Master Ace, because Take a Look Around was released in 1990, and he pretty much produced the whole album and shit like that. And so MC Shan pretty much went on to a hip hop magazine called what's it called? Word Up magazine and shit like that. Which you guys should know Word Up magazine. All my Biggie fans, y'all should know about that. And so he basically dissed him in the magazine, and so that's when Craig G came out with this track right here and shit like that. And the crazy thing is only one fucking verse he went after Shan and shit. And with that being said, this is like one of the most underrated diss tracks in hip hop history. One of the most underrated hip hop diss tracks. And this is like pretty much one of his best songs, like one of the best Craig and Marley Marl collaborations and shit. Like he just went in on Shan, especially with lines like, "Speaking of steps, don't step to this, cause Craig G's just too treacherous. With the mic in hand, I command like a foreman, and all of my troops start storming. To any MC in the vicinity, you better run or prepare for an injury." And then I'm skipping around right now. "You little whack hip hop bass head. Here's a rap that'll turn your whole face red. A brother makes 3 LPs and still on Pumas and Lees, and his label wants to give him the boot, but he owes them so much loot that they're writing him off with their taxes. It considers albums as practice." And a lot of that shit too was kind of fucking true, because around that time, Shan was kind of going through some tough time. He was kind of going through some tough times and shit like that around that era and shit like that too. From what I looked up, he was getting into drugs around that time. So yeah, man, Craig just didn't give no fucking fucks. He didn't give no fucks with this fucking track, man. Like, damn, like rip to shreds and shit like that. That's the fucking diss track right there. One of the most underrated diss tracks, as I should say. And to add insult to injury, like he still has one more diss track, what I'm gonna save up and shit. Track number 10. From a production standpoint, it's pretty much a very unique hip hop song and shit. It uses the sample, a Big Daddy Kane sample of, Ain't No Half Steppin', when he does that, That, y'all know what I'm talking about. And so, the way Marley Marl flipped it and shit like that, he basically pitched the a couple notches down. He pitched that down and made it complimentary with that fucking bass line and shit like that, which I definitely feel like it's a very, very dope beat by Marley Marl standards and shit like that. Lyrically is cool too. Like fucking Craig did his thing lyrically and shit too, but I just felt like that beat stole the show and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So that's track number 10 and shit like that. Track number 11, smoothing out the rough spots. Um, yeah, man, that's pretty much one of my favorite songs. Actually, my favorite song off this album. Very laid back kind of track and shit like that. Very laid back track right there. You know, Craig G just coasting on that fucking Marley Marl beat. I love the line when he says the shit like, did you like it? Yeah, I'm sure you sold on it. Watch all the bandwagon jumpers grab a hold on it and mistreat it, reuse it, or misuse it, and stop messing up the music. But see, smoothness is what this consists of, and over a clip where the other noise gets shoved. Like, very dope song right there, smoothing out the rust. This should definitely been a single in my opinion, but it is what it is. Track number 12, Feel Your Way. Very cool song, very cool song. Salam Remy and Marley Marl got production credit on that one. Definitely kind of like a vintage Salam Remy and shit like that. Yeah, man. And Craig G just calling out whack MCs and stuff like that. So yeah, very cool. Next track, No Favors. Yeah, this is probably, like, believe it or not, the best chick song off this album. It's very funny how he's feeling salty after this girl left him and shit like that, and he basically just don't give a fuck off on this fucking track and shit like that. And so he has some lines, and so, like, if I can pull up some of the lyrics and shit, cause the song is actually not on. Oh, actually, yeah, it is on Genius. Excuse me. So yeah, no favors. I'm gonna read y'all some lines right now. He says some shit like, "Cause now the sequel's, Nam saying, so hey, you can suck my dick. Cause now the sequel's out and you're out of luck. Yo man, she started to cry. Hey, I don't give a fuck. She dished it out, so now she's gonna get it too. So fuck you and the doctor that delivered you. And after the shit that I gave her, you gonna diss me, bitch? Do me no favors." She has some nerve trying to play me like I'm Milton Bradley. She knows I'm trying to play me like I'm Milton Bradley. So when she's hearing this, I hope her ass is feeling badly. Nice line. About the things she did and she often tried. Now that you cry, go ahead and commit suicide. Like, just go on fucking in on this fucking track, man. Yeah, man, that's fucking No Favors. Track number 14, Word Association. Again, another dope song right there. Remix is pretty dope too. And shit. Word Association is him going ham on the fucking track. Track number 15, You Are Not the One. Oh man, God. Out of all the songs, this was the only single. Yeah, it's not a bad song, but again, it definitely has a Mama Said knock you out feel to it. And it just has like a very chick song appeal to it too, so could have done without it. And so last 3 tracks are bonus tracks. I usually don't talk about the bonus tracks off albums and shit like that, but unless I have the album, but these were just too good not to speak about. So yeah. Track number 16, Swiftness. Cool, dope song right there. Very dope song. I believe it uses the same sample as EPMD. All my EPMD fans should know about that. Track number 17, Live Off the Top, which pretty much is him paying homage, like the freestyle, going back to his roots and whatnot. Just talking about rapping off the top of his head and shit. And the last track, Going for the Throat. This is actually the last diss track aimed at Shan and shit like that. And pretty much, yeah, this one he's pretty much going, like, he's pretty much saying like a lot of clarity on his shots at Shan and shit like that. A little trivia though, and this is one thing I didn't notice until I was re-listening to the fucking album. If you listen closely to the drum break on that fucking track, Marley Marl uses the same drums he used on The Bridge Is Over. He uses the same drums as the bridge is over from Boogie Down Productions. Like, how disrespectful is that shit? Like, I'm sorry, but I just can't imagine how Shan might have felt around that time and shit. Like, you're going through label issues around that time. The producer basically produced a dope album, not only for somebody like on in your collective, but for somebody that you used to beef with and shit. The fact that they used the same drum pattern off another motherfucker that dissed you and shit too. So yeah, man, like he was going. I just can't imagine how he was going through with that shit. Like, and yeah, MC Shan, he's definitely a hip hop legend. He's definitely a hip hop legend and shit like that. I'll never take that away from him and shit, but I got called out. Got called out when I got called out and shit. So yeah, going for the throat. Certain lines he says was, "Cause he was washed up and strung out on crack. Freebase his life was a waste to the rap world. Nobody cared about him or his whack girl. So yo, I took it in stride and continued with my life until recently he showed some form of indecency. When in the magazine he tried to release on me, but now it's the last straw. I gotta wreck. I'm gonna wreck him and anything he stands for. Like, fucking dope diss track. Just like Riff Distress, this is definitely an underrated diss track in its own right and shit. So, and that's all, everything off this album. Overall, while I do admit now that's more like it, it's an obvious improvement off the Kingpin, it still has its issues I want to pinpoint and shit like that. And that's mostly to do with the production. Now, Marley Marl, you know, he's always been one of my favorite producers and shit. He's always been one of my favorite hip hop producers and shit like that. But sometimes production wise, he kind of pisses me off sometimes and shit. So, production wise, sometimes he can piss me off, you know, because sometimes he likes to follow a lot of trends with his beats and shit, you know, with 1989 and shit, when he was producing, you know, for Shantae and, you know, produced for Kool G Rap. He was experimenting with the house vibe and shit. Excuse me. Yeah, like with the house vibe, house music and shit like that. And then with you know, with this album and shit like that, it is quite evident that with this album there are a lot of, not a lot, but it's like a good amount of like New Jack Swing songs that could have fit better with, you know, LL Cool J and shit like that. Cause you guys should know, Mama Said Knock You Out came out a year prior and shit like that. Came out a year prior to Now That's More Like It and shit like that. And y'all should know how I feel about Mama Said Knock You Out. I'm not even gonna stress too much about that and shit. But with that being said, the best way to describe Now That's More Like It, the ratio between the good songs and the end songs is a lot more better. And at the same time too, it also carves an insight of what the Kingpin issues were, what was the problems with the Kingpin and shit. And also the good things about Now That's More Like It was the fact that it had more of a balance between like the love songs and the lyrical songs too and shit too. So that's a plus. And you know, unfortunately, this album is out of print. Unfortunately, I don't think this album was released on vinyl, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that's very interesting about this album and shit. So if y'all can find this album, must have in your collection. This is Craig G. Now That's More Like It. And after the release of this album, he kind of took a break from, you know, music and shit like that. He got dropped from Atlantic Records, you know, cause you know Atlantic history with hip hop, man. I'm telling you, but that's another story for a different day. And so I know that a lot of people like the album This Is Now that was released on D&D Records, which I've not heard that album and shit like that. I've got to hear it, but yeah, a lot of people said some good things about that album. So one day I'm going to definitely listen to the album and review it one day. But yeah, Craig G, that's more like it. Very cool, very dope, very solid album and shit like that from Craig G. A legend right there. And that's all of the time I have for this album and shit. Stay tuned for more. Click that subscribe button. Peace.